Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, you know, over the years, I've been having a lot of issues with trying to find the right weedless wacky rig hook. I have asked for lots of your opinions. I've gotten lots of great feedback. And at this point, I feel like I've tried almost every brand out there. And I've come up with a couple that I do really like. But having said that, I still don't feel like there is a perfect weedless wacky rig hook available on the market. There's so many different options to choose from. And what I've found is I've got a handful of different ones that I think are pretty dependable, depending on the given situation that you're in. So I'm going to share with you the three that I like the most. And feel free to provide your feedback as well during this in the comment section. Because like I said, I'm not done trying hooks, but I have tried almost everything. I mean, I've got a whole pile laid out here. I've got the VMC Wacky Weedless hook. I've got the VMC Weedless Neko hook. I've got the Ichikawa Sasori Weedless hook. I've got Berkeley's Fusion 19 Weedless Wacky. I've got the Gamakatsu Finesse Wacky Weedless hook. I've got the Owner Jungle Wacky. I've got, decoys. I've got all kinds of hooks that I've tried. And I have been experimenting, honestly, for the past couple of years, because a weedless wacky rig is a huge bait that I use in my daily fishing arsenal. And if you don't have the right weedless wacky rig bait, it could be a very frustrating day on the water if you're fishing around heavy cover. And at the same time, if you're, it could be you're getting stuck too much, or it could be the opposite. It could be you're just not hooking up with fish because the weed guards are too strong. So that's what I found. In general, the majority of these hooks either have a weed guard that is way too light to the point where, in my opinion, it's no different than using a standard wacky rig hook that's not weedless, or they're too stiff where it creates fish losses is generally what happens. In my opinion, I don't want to point out any bad ones or any good ones. I want to point out the ones that I think are the best based on what I've used, because there are a whole ton of these on the market. And the ones that I'm ending up choosing here that are going to be the ones I use in my tournaments are ones that you guys have suggested to me. So thank you very much for that. I take all of your suggestions very welcoming with open arms, because I learn from you guys as much as I hope you learn from me. So I'm very appreciative of having the communication flow that we have back and forth. And the weedless wacky rig hook is one that I have struggled with for quite some time, because I don't want to use one that gets stuck too much, because then I'm either breaking off and losing them, which is costing me money, or I'm going into the cover to get my snag out, which means I'm blowing that fishing opportunity. So, having the right hook is very important to me. So I've got these three. These are the ones I'm going to go over. Now, keep in mind, these three are what I like the best, but I'm not going to sit here and say that they are like the perfect wacky rig hook, but I've got very specific reasons why I like each of them. So that's what we'll go over. The first one I'm going to start with is the Owner Jungle Wacky Weedless hook. So the Owner Jungle Wacky Weedless hook is a two-prong, like light wire weed guard, one coming off to each side of the hook. I like that. Here's the deal with this. There are other brands that have these same two kind of, I would assume that these are almost a wire. I mean, they're very bristly, like they can poke right into your skin. The thing is, the positioning of these are really good, and at the same time, they're not too stiff. Now, having said that, this is the hook that I will use with a weedless wacky rig when I'm throwing it on a bait caster, because they still are somewhat bristly, to the point where if you're using light action spinning gear, it could potentially hurt you on your landing percentage. Now, I haven't had an issue with it throwing it on bait casting gear. And when I throw a weedless wacky rig on bait casting gear, it's still relatively light. It is a light, medium, heavy action rod that's that's on 10-pound fluorocarbon or 12-pound fluorocarbon. So it's not so stiff where you're not going to get the hook home with that. I just don't want to throw this on 6-pound with a medium light spinning rod. But the weedless Jungle Wacky Rig hook by Owner is one that I would recommend. I'm using it, and it is probably the most weedless because the bristles are stiff. So if you're fishing around much heavier cover, like, you know, this is what I like to throw on the river here because I'm throwing it in a little off-colored water. I've got current, which is bringing my bait into the log jams, and I'm primarily fishing log jams. So from that standpoint, it's not uncommon for me to throw this on bait casting gear. So that's one of them. The next one, I'm going to go the complete opposite now, and this is the one that I would throw with really light finesse action. So this is the Decoy Tuned Plus Cover Finesse HD hook. So this is a multiple bristle hook. This has got 4, looks like a plastic bristle. So it's a very light weed guard. And this is light, but it's not to the point where it's not going to prevent you from getting stuck. Now, keep in mind, if you're using this, you need to be aware that you're fishing around heavier cover and that you may end up, you know, getting current taking your bait into a log, or there may be log or wood debris under the water. So it's not like you want to pull this right into those objects. You want to work it slow through that cover, because if you pull it fast, it's a light enough weed guard where it will end up getting you hung up. But if you're cognizant that you're fishing around wood and you're slowly pulling it around, it's stiff enough where you can get this bait through the cover relatively easily. So I really do like this. I like the, you know, all of these hooks have phenomenal, all of these Weedless Wacky Rig hooks that I tried, for the most part, if it's a top brand, you're talking about very, very sharp hooks, because they're generally very small diameter hooks, and therefore they're going to be sharp anyways. So I had no issue with any of that. My issue comes down to the weed guard with these. But in this case, this is the Cover Finesse by Decoy, is a very good one. This is the one that I will use for the most part. I don't generally throw this around wood nearly as much. This is what I like to throw if I'm fishing around rock, or maybe I'm skipping docks and, you know, you don't have as much debris. You just have poles and maybe, you know, a few random crossbars or something like that. It works really well. Now, having said that, if I'm fishing where there's a little bit heavier cover, or if I'm, say, want to fish the light tackle around some wood, around some stumps, or even some grass, that's when I go with another Decoy hook. This is the I think it's the Bodyguard HD Weedless Wacky Rig hook. So it's basically the same hook, but instead of it being the Cover Finesse, it's got stiffer bristles. So hopefully you can see that. The stiffer bristles just give it a little bit more weedlessness. So these still are not so stiff where you're gonna have issue with it preventing hookups, and they're not stiff enough where if you pull this quickly into a log jam, you're gonna get stuck still, but it's just a little bit stiffer. So if I think I'm gonna be fishing around heavier cover all day, that's when I'll go with the Body Hook HD. It's another Tune Plus by Decoy. I think I'm saying that right. I guess I'm not sure. I'll put the links in the video description for you so that you can go check these out at Tackle Warehouse as well. But this is a really good all-around one. So if I'm gonna be fishing a little bit heavier cover, not super heavy, where maybe I'm just going down the bank and I've got some laydowns, I've got some docks, maybe some pads, that type of thing, that's when I like to go with this one, because it's the best medium level weed guard, if it makes sense. It's right where I would want one to be. Again, this is the 4 bristle plastic weed guard like you'd get on a jig. It's just a tiny little one. Now, the other thing I'm going to point out, so I do really like both of these. The issue that I have with the Decoy ones is after some use, the whole weed guard tends to want to spin. So they come out of place a little bit. So I'd recommend taking like a dab of super glue and trying to lock it in. Or if it does spin on you, so it's no longer lined up with the hook point, you can super glue it back in and get it back into position. But that was one thing that I noticed that I did not like with these Decoy hooks. But overall, if we're talking weedlessness without hurting your hookup percentage and at the same time truly getting you through the cover, these are the 3 that I would recommend, guys. And I have been experimenting for years with this, and I am actually at the point where I feel very comfortable using these. Because prior to this, prior to finding these, I actually would not throw a weedless wacky rig in a tournament situation. I would rather take my chances with a straight unweedless wacky rig in areas where I should have been throwing a weedless wacky, because I felt like the ones that were truly weedless were costing me a lot of fish. I was losing a lot of fish with it because the bristles were so stiff that they were backing that hook out, and it was causing a lot of problems. So I hope this helps you guys, because throughout the years when I've been talking about this, I've gotten a lot of comments from people who wanted to know what I ended up finding that I like. Now, I haven't stopped my search. I'm more than happy to try more hooks. But these three I have no problem at all recommending to you if you're looking for a weedless wacky rig hook that has a good performance out of it. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know if there's other ones I need to try in the comment section. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this, hit the like button and stay tuned. We'll have another video coming out tomorrow.